Hello, my name is Ezra Bram, and I've compiled a brief history on the spread of Christianity throughout Japan. Slaughter, crucifixion, exclusion, religion, persecution, and complete disarray may be some of the last things that come to mind when you imagine Japan, but I assure you, they are crucial parts of Japan's history. Religion has played a crucial role in shaping the country that we see today, especially its animosity towards Christianity. Over 2,000 years ago, when Jesus walked the earth, the world was a very different place, especially the Far East. China was, as it still is, the dominating power of the region. Japan was just beginning to merge as an economic contributor to its Korean and Chinese neighbors. By trading with China and Korea, Buddhism and Confucianism slowly ingrained itself into Japanese culture. Shintoism, Japan's native religion, began developing and mixing with Buddhism and Confucianism in extremely formative and impactful ways. The weaving of the three different religions and philosophies created a culture completely saturated with a worldview void of any supreme deity and no concept of sin. Instead, the people were groomed with a deep respect for nature, a strict social order, a lofty sense of superior wisdom, and a habitual worship of ancestors and emperors. The assimilation of these influences founded the firm opposition to Christianity that Francis Xavier faced nearly 1,000 years later. On August 15, 1549, Francis Xavier, a Spanish Jesuit, arrived in Japan as the first bearer of good news. With the help of his first convert, Xavier labored tirelessly to evangelize throughout the land. At the time, Shintoism and Buddhism were in a degenerate state, and that created an opportune time for Xavier's indoctrination of the country. Although he was only in the country for 2.5 years, his actions prompted scores of other Jesuits to follow. His arrival harkened to the period known as the Christian Century, which spanned from 1549 to 1639. By 1581, there were already 200 churches and 150,000 professed believers spreading across dozens of walks of life. By 1614, the number of believers peaked at over 600,000. Xavier was deeply committed to the gospel and carried it everywhere he went, although it is crucial to note that he never fully grasped the Japanese language. That is why his partner Yujiro is so absolutely vital to Christians' impact on Japan. Yujiro was responsible for translating the Gospel of Matthew, and he ran into many translational issues. With a Buddhist background, Yujiro utilized many Buddhist terms to help describe concepts that were completely foreign to the Japanese, like the idea of one absolute God and Christian dogma. However, he was still a big proponent in spreading the gospel. Ultimately, God used him for good. Oda Nobunaga was another crucial character in Christianity's early stages, as he was a highly influential political leader who defended the faith. He was attempting to unify the country of Japan. However, when he was executed, Christianity's downfall was set in motion. He was necessary for the roots of the faith to form. With his protection no longer in place, political leaders began to take severe action against a religion that was beginning to win the hearts of Japan's people. One of many responses from the frightened political powers was displayed through the crucifixion of 26 martyrs. The ironic deaths of the Christians taking place upon a hilltop in Nagasaki, a Christian stronghold, terrified many away from the faith. It also drove many Christians underground to practice their faith in secret. The edicts of 1606 and 1614 declared Christianity to be illegal. The persecution that ensued was bloody and ruthless, to say the least. Burnings, crucifixions, and unimaginable forms of torture awaited any believer who would not renounce the faith. Consequently, the Christian population was cut in half by the end of the 17th century. Following these extremely violent measures, Japan declared the most severe form of exclusion and shut its borders to the rest of the world. During this time, no one was allowed in or out. All foreigners found in Japanese territory were executed. Prohibitions against Christianity were posted all over the country. Naturally, the church was driven underground. During this long 200-year period, believers inevitably dwindled and conjured up skewed theology. Miraculously, however, their faith did survive the long silence. When the country reopened again through the forceful arrival of American Matthew C. Perry and his naval ships, many believers came out of hiding. Half of Roman Catholics today are descendants from these hidden Christians. Although there was still a great resistance against Christianity, the Meiji Restoration flooded the country with trade and missionaries eager to evangelize. Under an optimistic light, Christianity steadily grew throughout the years. Political and ideological resistance was met, but those are shy in comparison to the two traumatizing atomic bombs dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima at the end of World War II. With the United States occupying the country after the war, more missionaries flooded the country, but the religion of the West still isn't welcome today. The westernization of Japan has only deepened the animosity many Japanese people have against Christianity, as they consider it to be the invention of the West. Today, there are 182,310 religious entities registered with the government in Japan today, and only 2.3% of them are Christian. The average congregation size is roughly 30. The average pastor's age sits around 65. Within the next 10 years, over half of Japanese churches will close just because there is no one ready to take their place. Maintenance is being done to train younger pastors to step in for the dying generation. Much hermeneutics and apologetics is being done to fix many theological errors found in the Japanese church. The Great Commission is being emphasized in order for Japanese locals to reach the vastly untouched world Japan. There are many cultural hurdles that must be addressed as well. Finding another believing spouse is a low priority. Many Japanese do not understand the gospel, even in Japanese. Children are disowned from their family for something as simple as attending church in some cases. The overall culture of Japan is quickly moving away from any religious dependence and abandoning any regard for religion. If we can learn how to invigorate the Japanese believers to evangelize within their own cultural context, I believe that we can be on the cusp of a great Japanese revival. The Japanese themselves must do the work. Us foreign missionaries can only support our local brothers and sisters in carrying out the Great Commission within their own tense and charged culture. They know how to navigate these hurdles best. One organization that recognizes a similar strategy is Team Japan. They train leaders to take responsibility for their own evangelization. They also help bridge the gap in the chasm between the Christian worldview and a difficult Japanese culture that simply seems to reject the faith. If we continue along their path, we may be, and we may see in our lifetime, a great Japanese revival.